Okay. Hey guys, this is another vlog that I want to do, and I want to talk a little bit about anime. Okay. Um, I, I, I'm not going to talk about any specific anime at once. I'm just going to talk about a few that I know about and that I enjoy in general, and I'll go into certain ones I like an actual one anime at a time at a later date. Okay. Let's see. Naruto first came out when I was a sophomore in high school. That's how old I am. Okay. Now with Naruto, okay, here's the answer to why I don't really follow a lot of the mainstream anime anymore, especially when it's like hundreds of episodes long. Because Naruto and Dragon Ball sucked it out of me. Like, I stuck with Naruto from beginning to end, man, and it just sucked the life out of me. I was like, I can't do it again. I don't have enough emotional energy to put into a sequel, which when I found out they did, I was like, no. And now, okay, the first time I watched Boruto was at episode 25. Not a very good place to start, and not intentionally. I was flipping through channels, alright? But the first thing I saw in this is like, okay, the uh the class decides, let's go to the land of waves, where which is, if you don't know, is the very first mission the team in the original went to and liberated from a dictator. Okay, fine, but but the first thing I see when they decide to do that is like they're taking a cruise ship to the land of waves. I'm like, how long was Team 7 on that rowboat? And how did. Oh my gosh, poor Sakura. She was the only chick in that whole group. Oh my gosh, that's the first thing. Like, how far away is it? And how long did Team 7 in the original have to take that rowboat to get there? If they're taking a cruise ship. That was, like, very inconsistent. And when they have normal modern day skyscrapers on top of their version of Mount Rushmore for the village, which clashes with the rest of the village, which it has its own unique world structure. So I'm like, this is very janky and very weird. You watch it and you get if you're not prepared, you get jarred from it, man. And like the only character that actually comes out of this show with his dignity intact is Kakashi, and I love Kakashi. He's the best part of that whole franchise as a whole, and I'll get into that in a minute. The dude fought two full-blown immortals to a standstill. Case closed. No, but and actually, I related to that character way more than anyone else, or even the main character. But uh, oh, Boruto's a mess. I don't care who you are, and I don't care how diehard Naruto fan you are. You cannot deny there's some things in there like, yeah, that's kind of weird, or that's janky, and blah blah blah. Or Anko, like the one of the hottest female anime characters ever, became my ex-girlfriend. And those of you who know me and know what I'm talking about, I applaud you. But those of you that don't know, I won't get into too much detail, but she basically went from being hot to not. And I am not body shaming because I have dated that and I almost married that. But that's beside the point. When you watch anime, you don't watch for realism, man. Unless you're watching slice of life, you're essentially watching anime soap opera. Anyway. But most people, when they watch anime, they're watching it for an escape and like for hot women, if that's part of the show that you're watching. And that anyway, Anko went from being this hot chick that's usually like yeah, I could get with her, but she'd probably hurt me in the process, to just being like the ugly sister that nobody wants to be around. I don't know. It was very disappointing. But Kakashi is absolutely the best. Still, and he don't even like Boruto from what I saw. That's amazing. And Boruto, let's talk Boruto for a minute. The actual character. Y'all grew up watching Naruto, and you realize that his whole boisterous, believe it stuff is one a mask, and because he wants attention, and he doesn't care any kind of attention he gets as long as it's attention. Because he grew up with no family, no parents. He was an orphan, so all he wants is attention and to be noticed. Okay, but when he said, but when he boasts about himself and all this and that, it's a mask. When Boruto does it, he actually believes the bull that he's spewing. You know what that is? A douchebag. Anyway, I'm sorry. I got heated. I'm sorry, but no. Kakashi's the best. Don't care. Case closed. But no. Let's talk Shiki for a second. And if you don't know, like, again, I'm an old otaku. If that's basically like a guy that watches older anime, prefers older anime over the new. Okay, I grew up watching the original Voltron from the '70s. That was a fun show. It's dated, obviously. I grew up watching Ronin Warriors. Those of you that don't know, okay, it's a 40 it's a 40 something episode anime that's 30 years old. It literally came out the same year I was born. And it's definitely dated and it's cheesy, but that just adds to its charm. Essentially what Okay, I'll get to Ronin Warriors in a second. I am very bad at jumping around. I said Shiki, right? Okay, Shiki. It's a horror anime. And it's probably one of my favorites too, because like a lot of horror anime is blood and guts for shock value. It doesn't really show it's not really story driven, except that it's horror genre. Whoa, it's scary. Shiki doesn't do that. In fact, when it does show blood, it's earned it. What I mean by that is like the first. Okay, I don't. I'm just trying to decide whether to like spill the beans or about it or not, because you could very well go into this not knowing what it's about, but until the big reveal in the first couple of episodes, and they're like, oh, but it's also very easy to figure out if you're paying attention. But because they drop hints, but they're not subtle hints. You're able to figure it out. So I'm going to operate on the assumption you can figure it out. But basically, like, it's in a small backwater village, okay, but it's this epidemic starts killing people throughout the village, and just out of nowhere, and people are dropping like flies, kind of like what's happening now. No, anyway, this came out several years ago, but there's a a doctor and the village doctor and the village monk are best friends and grew up together. Okay, kind of sounds like me and my best friend. Um, anyway, anyway, again, they figure out like they realize, oh, it's not an epidemic, it's vampires. And it's revealed when one of the teenagers is sleeping over at his friend's house, and one of the victims, like the first victim of the epidemic, crawls out from under the dude's bed, and like you hear this creaking and groaning and twitching and cracking, and it's just very unsettling to hear. And if you don't know, like if you're not in the know of why that is, it's creepy. But if you are in the know, it's even more freaky, because it goes back to Japanese um folklore where vampires, yeah, they're vampires, but they're still dead bodies. and they're suffering from rigor mortis. So that's why they're stiff and moving, and they're awkward and creaking and groaning as they're moving. That's genius. That is genius when you put that kind of stuff in there. And it's not in there all the time. It's when it is, it's very effective. Let's put it that way. So, um, like, so it basically goes from what's happening. Okay, this is happening. How do we stop it? And then it turns into this and then the last half of the second half of the show is like, who's really the monsters, us or them? That kind of thing. And it has Todd Hapricorn playing a character that is very unlike his stereotypical kind of characters that he plays. He essentially plays Orochimaru in the sense that he's a groveling little worm snake cretin. Like, he's very much a icky. The character he plays is very much icky. Like, oh, he's such a weaseled, slimy guy, personality wise, and it's really janky, jarring when you hear Todd Hapricorn's name coming out of the dude's mouth. So it's very strange because usually Todd Hapricorn either plays the hero or the best friend of the hero, aka like Full Metal Alchemist and Free, I think, and uh Orange Host High School Club, that kind of stuff. That's usually the kind of characters he plays. Not this. He plays a very wormy kind of slithery kind of guy. It caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it. But no, let's see. I'm a very old otaku, I guess. I don't know. I grew up when Toonami first came out. Yeah, Toonami back then meant something. It's not like now where like, oh well, Toonami's on, and we get to see some anime, but we could have seen the same anime stuff and even more stuff on the internet. We didn't have that back then. That like Toonami was our only source of anime at that point in time. Whereas this was like over 15 years or more ago. So let's see. I want to do a video. I want to talk a little bit about Outlaw Star. Again, these are my first few videos, so I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of a rundown over in general, and then I'll do some vlogs about them in more detail. I guess. How's that sound? Outlaw Star is probably my favorite anime of all time. Like, like it really is. Like, there's this weird window from like the 90s and early 2000s where anime to me was just golden. And you can definitely also tell with the hair too, like, because like anime now is like one of those. It has this staple of redonkulous style hair. Starting out in the early days, like decades ago, the hairstyles were fairly normal, fairly realistic. And then there was like this weird time in the 90s and early 2000s where they were starting to adapt what the hairstyles that we would know now, but they still looked more on the more realistic side. Outlaw Star has that. Like, they're realistic, but they're starting to have the qualities of modern anime hairstyles. If it makes sense. You would have to see it. Anyway, Outlaw Star is essentially, I've heard it called a space western, but that's not right. That's more akin to like Cowboy Bebop or Trigun, not Outlaw Star. Outlaw Star is more of a space treasure hunt. That is essentially what it is. And that's my favorite waifu of all time on there. I'm a Neku, man. Like, it's anyway. Her skin can shatter a steel knife. Case closed. No, so we followed these like two guys, like a guy named Gene Starwin, who I would love to cast Ryan Gosling or Paul Rudd as in a live action. I would love that. Anyway, because I could see either one of them. And then Jim Hawking. He's like a 13, 14-year-old kid, but he's a hacking genius, and he's the most mature and adult and a responsible one of the whole entire group, man. Like he's managing their account, their savings, their maintaining the ship and its costs and funds. Like he's essentially what makes that whole group run. And then we got by the way, before I move on to the other characters, Outlaw Star has the most incredible iconic weapon of all time, period. It's called a caster gun. So he has these little shells, like bullet shells, but they're like a little oversized, but each one is numbered and each one does something different. Like, oh, that one will shoot lightning, or that one will shoot a a dragon a beam or something, or shoot a freaking miniature black hole at a guy. I am not kidding. That happens. It's amazing. Twilight Suzuka. She's one of two characters that is essentially the muscle of the group. And I'll get to the other one in a minute. And they're both chicks. And that's amazing. I'll get to that in a minute. So you're welcome, feminists. This show has two females that kick everyone else's butt. You're welcome. And I love it. But it's not a feminist show, so you can still cry about it. Oh goodness. Now Twilight Suzuka, she's like, how do I say it? She's a Japanese assassin from ancient times, essentially, but she uses a wooden sword and can cut semi trucks in half like that with it. So she good. She real good. Outlaw Star is one of those shows that it's weird in the sense that it how do I say it? You can clearly tell there's world building, but it doesn't elaborate on anything. Like like for instance, my favorite character, Asia Clan. She's what's called a Taro Kataro. She's uh she's uh she's the second muscle of the group and probably the strongest in the whole show. Uh, um she's an alien, okay, but we aren't really like told much about her or her people or whatever. We just know, oh, you don't mess with them because they'll mess you up worse than you could, kind of thing. And they're very prideful, okay. But we're not told anything about it. All we need to know is she's a bumbling, hyperactive idiot. That's all we need to know. We aren't told much about Suzuka's background because all we need to know is she's a awesome assassin that is essential to the group. And in fact, there's a lot of times where the group is out doing something ridiculous, and she's like at a casino or at a hotel just chilling, and then it comes in when no one's looking and saves the day, essentially, without them realizing it. But and then there's Melfina. Oh, Melfina. What do I say about her? What can I say? Like she's essentially the key character to the whole show. Like, and I don't want to give much away because because if you want to watch it, I don't want to spoil anything like that. But she's essentially like the treasure map almost. She's what River is. She's to Outlaw Star what River is to what is it? Serenity, Firefly. So that's essentially who she is. And the funny thing is, they were running side by side those two shows to the point where like people were thinking like the guy was ripping off Outlaw Star to the point he was even asked. He's like, and he goes, no, 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 that's not. No, I'm not. All right, bud. um. uh, Another show that I really like that I haven't seen in so many years. It's not even funny, and I wanna get it. Was Gundam Wing. Not just any Gundam. Gundam Wing. It was so fun. And that was a fun one. Uh see. I actually want them to make a Zelda anime. Like this is like this whole Zelda. Okay, well I'll save that for another video because I could go on about that for a while, and I don't want to get sidetracked, which I do very easily. Okay, so Broly. We can't talk anime or even mention Dragon Ball without talking about Broly, right? Okay. I like I like the new movie that came out. I thought it was pretty good. I must like it's weird because I did grow up watching the original. I have it right over there. Um, like Brawley went from being a yeah, Brawley in the new one's more powerful, but he went from being a force of nature to a raging bull. Like the whole time I watched him fight in that new movie, he I just thought he's a bull. He's a raging bull. It doesn't matter what you do to him. He may fall back a few feet, but he's still coming right at you, full speed ahead. That's what a bull does. But where in the original, like he was just overwhelmed the whole Z fighters. Like, and what helped impact that was the fact that Vegeta didn't join in until the last part of the fight, and even then he got scared and got his butt whooped. But that like that right there helps sell it tremendously because most of the time Vegeta is the first one to jump in. This time he was too freaked out to do anything. That helps sell it quite a bit. But and then I love how like Brawly like all these guys are like uh, accomplished martial artists, and Brawly's beating them down with wrestling moves and clotheslines and stuff. I thought it was genius. I thought it was so funny. I kid you not. They how many times did Brawly clothesline someone through a building and then into something else, or ram a dude into a huge mountainside? That was awesome. And I love Brawly's like in his restricted Super Saiyan when he wore the crown and had like the bluish green whatever hair. That was so cool to me, and I love that color. It was just woo. Oh man, Princess Trunks, you lied to me. Goku, get me out of here and instant transmission me now. And another thing is like everyone loves to make fun like that all he says is Kakarot. That really didn't kick in until the second movie, Second Coming, which by the way was a genius title because it was saying this dude is so awesome and badass and like a such a force to be reckoned with that there's no other way for him showing up again to be called anything other the Second Coming. You know, it's just he was that. You know, I don't know. And so I thought I thought that was pretty awesome. That second title, but like yeah, he yelled Kakarot a lot in the first one, but he had way more dialogue than just that. In fact, that was maybe at most half his dialogue, if that. It didn't really start becoming a gag until the second one, where that was most of his dialogue. Because and think about it. He he was frozen for 7 years, and then he gets woken up by crying. Okay, and the whole thing with his legendary form in the original, the longer he was in it, the more powerful he got. So essentially he had no cap or limiter, and the more unstable his mind got. Okay, in the first one he was in that form for so long, but he also got beat and then got frozen on Earth. So his mind will. There's a reason his mind snapped, and when it went back to that. And a friend of mine was talking about it. Like, it wasn't so much the crying that Brawley latched onto. It's like he had such a phenomenal power from birth. He only had two real memories: was the crying and being stabbed, to really remember anything of himself. And then coupled with the fact that the nurse attendants, I guess what you would call them, were saying Brawley essentially, they were mocking, but they were essentially saying Brawley had the power of a Saiyan, where Goku had the spirit of a Saiyan, and that latched onto him because it's always kind of been implied that Saiyans had better memory recognition as than normal than like people, especially in infancy, you know. Yeah, so it was that stuff that basically broke his mind. And so, yeah, he's going to reach out to that, and it made sense. But then again, he still said other stuff. In fact, my entire favorite Broly line was in the second one. Gohan is about to power up, and he's saying, he yells, "I've had enough," and Broly's just like, "Not until you are dead at my feet." That was in the second one. Okay, the third one no one liked. No one liked the third one because he went from being Broly to Swamp Thing. That that's what happened. So I overall I love Broly. I love Vic, but I just I really think that, anyway, how do I say this? I prefer the original because there was a lot more impact with the original. I guess. I guess he was a force of nature. This new Brawly, while it has more character development, and actual personality, and reasons that we can get behind, he went from being a force of nature to a raging bull, which is still good. It's still good. And I never even, okay. One of my whole problems with Dragon Ball Super as a whole is the Super Saiyan God stuff. I think it's unnecessary. It's very aggravating to me. Okay, before I get into it, let me explain. I'm a Christian. I come from a Christian family, and I. It doesn't mean I'm a pansy. There's a lot like, but the thing is, if you're going to introduce forms like God tier forms, show us something that they can do that we would connect with. Like, okay, that's why it's called that, not just a huge power boost. That don't fly. Because if you're gonna just do a huge power boost kind of thing, Super Saiyan 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, here we go. Makes more sense. But and someone's going to say, oh, well, Goku did that God bind thing. Didn't Gildo or Guido or the potato head guy from the Ginyu Force do that? It's nothing new. It may be stronger because of the foreman who performed it, but it's the same technique, essentially. Does the same thing. Kind of boring. I think they should have done stuff like, I think they should have introduced like 5, 6, 7, 8. Essentially, the whole I don't know. It just felt like Super Saiyan 2.0 for no need and without the impact. Because I saw when it was first introduced and all that too. So it's just, I went and saw all three movies in the theater, guys. So don't try to pull junk. So I've been watching Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball franchise since I was 6. And the original Ocean stuff. I'm old time, man. But, yeah. So, alright. Check y'all later.